Iron Maiden in the UK might be one of the most epic heavy metal rock groups in the world. Over the last 45 years, the band has sold over 100 million records. They're due to release a new record this November 20th called Knights of the Dead, Legacy of the Beast, recorded live in Mexico City. It came about following their canceling their 2020 tour due to the pandemic. Adrian Smith, Iron Maiden's lead guitarist for 30 of the last 45 years and self-professed compulsive angler, has also been keeping busy over the past year writing a book, Monsters of River and Rock. We've got Adrian Smith with us on Bluefish Radio today. Welcome to Bluefish Radio. I'm your host, Lawrence Gunther. Bluefish Radio is a show about the future of fish and fishing in Canada, so you will have the skills you need to become a steward of your favorite fishing hole. And we have Adrian Smith online with us on Bluefish Radio. Welcome, sir. Welcome to our Canadian podcast.
All right. Nice to be here.
I'm told you're fishing right now on the banks of a river, lake. Where are you?
I'm on a river. It's a river not far from my home called the River Colne, and I'm fishing for a fish we have here, as I was saying, called a barbel. So I'm hoping to get into one of them. They go up to sort of 10 or 15 pounds if you're lucky, you know.
Very nice. What are you using for bait?
I'm going to be using maggots today, grubs.
We use them a lot here for ice fishing in the wintertime. Very effective.
Fish do love them, yeah. Problem in the summer is, you get lots of little fish on them, but now it's getting colder. They're excellent for getting certain conditions, especially during the daytime when a fish wants like a big bait. You can put a little bait, but you still use heavy tackle so you can land them. But the fish are a little bit more wary in the daylight, so maggots are good for that. And
it's pouring rain where you are, and you're under an umbrella.
Well, not torrential rain, which it was a minute ago, but, for barbel, barbel and rain go together like, gin and tonic,
Adrian, I've been asking my fans and my listeners, what should I ask you? So I've got a list of questions here, sir, and we got a bit of time, so not a ton, though. So, hey, which came first, music or fishing?
Well, I started going fishing since I can remember. My dad was a very keen angler, and he used to take me every week, so the fishing came first, definitely.
Yeah, nice. That's good to start young.
Yeah. Well, it was in the blood, I mean, sometimes you can take kids fishing and they don't take to it, but it's, for some reason, I got the bug, and I loved it from the first time I went, I think.
And when did your music come into play?
When I was about 14 or 15, I was kind of a bit of a clueless, your usual type of teenager, didn't know what I wanted to do in my life, and I sort of wandered into my older sister's bedroom and to check out her albums, which I normally did, which were normally soul records of Temptations and Tamla Motown. And then I noticed she had some new records, and one of them was a Deep Purple record called Machine Head. And so I put that on the little record player, and I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. And that was it, really. It sort of changed my life, that song, and I thought, well, I'd love to be able to do that one day. The fishing kind of tapered off. I just thought, in those days, fishing, I couldn't imagine my heroes like Richie Blackmore from Deep Purple and people like that going fishing, So I thought, well, I'll give it up and I'll give all my time to try and make it as a professional musician. So that's what I did.
But you never lost the love of fishing, and I guess that's because you started so young, and I know I feel the same way, and I talk to a lot of people, and I think, like I said, getting it into your blood young, it's always there. Even if you leave for a little while, you always come back. You must have some influencers in your life that have drawn you back and keep you mojo going when it comes to fishing when you're on the road and you can't get to the water.
Yeah, even when I was going for that period where I didn't fish at all, we used to travel up and down the country, doing the circuit, paying your dues, as you call it, and then old bus, sleeping on the equipment and all this. But I remember, quite often we'd go over, rivers or go past lakes, and I'd sort of take a long look as we were going past, it was always there. And funny enough, when I joined Iron Maiden when I was about 25 years old, having not fished since I was 15, it turned out that a couple of the guys were anglers as well. So Clive Burr, the drummer, was quite a good angler, and we started going fishing when we were on tour. And we spent a lot of time in America and Canada in the 80s, and we discovered some fantastic fishing. We used to do that on our days off, amongst other things, of course, as you do when you're a young rock musician. But we tried to get out, and me and Clive and Dave Murray sometimes would go out, trout, carp, catfish, whatever was available. In fact, I caught my first carp in Wisconsin, in America, a gig called Alpine Valley. Unfortunately, it's known as the place where Stevie Ray Vaughan met his untimely death. But we were on tour at the time of the Scorpions, and we were staying in a hotel. We had a day off, and we fished the creek by the hotel, and I caught my first carp, ever there.
This whole balance between, the music and the fishing, you're lucky you had those fellow band members who were willing to indulge you, but you are known as the true enthusiast, I believe. You're the one that's got the bite the worst, apparently. But has it ever caused problems?
No, not really. I mean, a couple of times I left some worms underneath the tour bus where the luggage goes, and that caused a bit of upset a few people because they don't smell too good when you leave them. Apart from that, no, not really. I think it's a very healthy pastime. It's good for the mind. It's great for the mind, Famous English comedian, or Scottish comedian, Billy Connolly said, fishing is like meditation, but with a punchline. You sit there, you're totally absorbed in your fishing. Not only do you get the sort of meditative side of it, you get the thrill of maybe connecting with a decent fish, which is a real adrenaline rush for me as well.
It really is. Just the excitement of getting up in the morning and getting the tackle, packed and unpacked at the edge of the river or the lake or whatever. I mean, sometimes that's the most exciting part, getting the line in the water. You can finally relax a bit because all the pressure's off right now. It's just a matter of waiting.
I think anticipation is a massive part of fishing. And when you're not fishing, you can be planning your next trip, or figuring out your tactics, or it's making plans. It's all a big part of angling, I think.
You've had a 40-year career in rock and roll, 30 of that with Iron Maiden. Do you contribute fishing as keeping your head above water, keeping you centered, keeping you sort of on track? Has that been helpful in terms of keeping your health, mental, physical health?
100%. 100%. We toured a lot in it. We were always on the road in the 80s or in the studio, and it was fun, but there's a lot of pressure, a lot of temptation. And I think fishing definitely helped to balance me out. And in the 90s, when I left the band, I had a period of 3 or 4 years. That's pretty much all I did. I started a family, and I managed to do some fishing, So it definitely has balanced me out over the years,
Do you ever find that fishing starts to influence your creative side and the music side? Have you written any songs that have fishing as a theme, or did you ever sneak it in there a bit?
No, maybe subconsciously. The fact that it can sort of wipe your mind clean and you refresh your mind, so you can take on new ideas and get creative. But I haven't actually written a song about fishing, but maybe that'll be somewhere down the line.
There's not a lot of good ones out there, I'll have to say. So good for you for resisting the temptation.
No, a lot of people have been doing puns on Iron Maiden songs, like fishing songs. Instead of the Trooper, you got the Grouper and all this. Which is quite a bit of a competition. So that was a bit of fun.
But what about the opposite? Do you ever write music when you're down there on the bank and the fishing is slow? Do you ever have riffs coming into your head, or you're playing a little air guitar, working out some new songs?
Well, I think most musicians can relate. Sometimes you get the ideas at the oddest moments.
Yeah.
I've had ideas on my way back from the dentist when I've been in a lot of pain, and sometimes I get an idea when I'm on the bank, and luckily nowadays we've got mobile phones, so I can just sing the idea into it and work it out later. But that has definitely happened. Sometimes before a tour, I'll take my guitar fishing, and I'll set up a rod we use alarms here for fish for carp, and just chuck the rods out and sit back and practice a bit of guitar while I'm waiting for a fish to come along. Sometimes I'll do that before a tour,
Nice. So when you're on tour, you've got a whole schedule. You know where you're going to be and for what nights, what days. When do you start planning your fishing itinerary? Like, do you leave it last minute? Do you just get on the internet when you got a little break and try to find someplace? Or are you always picking guides ahead of time, or are you just going out there on your own?
I think the last place we we got ready for a tour was in Florida, and I fished all the canals around there for the peacock bass. So wherever I am, I try to sort of make the best of it. For example, in Paris, there's a big park called the Bois de Boulogne, and so I spent a lot of time exploring that, and there's got some wonderful fish in there. If you wouldn't think so. There's a lot of people around, a lot of dogs, a lot of noise, but there are fish there. So you can normally find somewhere to go fishing, but when we're on tour, I usually wait a couple of weeks, make sure I've got all my chops together before I start getting the fishing rods out, and then I'll take a look at the itinerary and say, there's a river next to the hotel there. I remember that place. You get to know places as you travel around the world. You tend to visit the same places over, so you get to know them and you get to know the good spots.
Very cool. And do you always go out with a local, or do you just go on your own?
I have done, yeah. As a matter of fact, the last time I was up in Canada, I went floated down the River Bow at Calgary. I used a guide there, and we had a great couple of days. I actually made a little film about it, and that's on my Instagram, Mr. Adrian Smith Instagram. I've got a YouTube channel, and I made videos, and that was one of them. Floated down the Bow River and caught some nice trout, fly fishing. That was a wonderful day. So yeah, sometimes I do take a guide, but just as often I'll venture out on my own.
We're talking to Adrian Smith. He is the self-proclaimed fishing fanatic for Iron Maiden, one of the most epic heavy metal rock bands in the world. And you've been to Canada fishing a few times. You mentioned a bunch of fishing trips to Canada. What did you like about the St. Lawrence River? You were fishing for smallmouth bass. Tell us about that a bit.
My wife's actually from Montreal. She grew up on a place called Nuns Island, and her father, up until recently, lived there, so we used to go and visit him. And again, when we had some time off, I'd spend a bit of time on the St. Lawrence. My brother-in-law actually introduced me to smallmouth bass fishing using sort of poppers and that, which was amazing. I mean, the St. Lawrence is an incredible river. Got so many different kinds of fish, and it's very interesting. So I'd like to explore that a bit more, but I had fun there. I also spent time up in Kamloops in the 80s, fly fishing for trout. Used to go up there on a float plane, go up to a lodge and stay there. I think I stayed there for about a month once. I didn't want to come home.
Nice.
Fantastic place, Canada. What a fishing paradise it is.
It really is. We really are lucky, and I'm not far from the St. Lawrence myself, but I know what you like. You get down there, and it's like you're on a lake at some points. It's just so vast and huge, and the species are extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. There's so much variety there, and the smallmouth are giants, right? I mean, they are such hard-fighting fish. When
we played in Toronto, we do a gig right on the lake there.
Yeah.
And I went down and did a little sound check for myself, and then got out on my spinning rod. Of course, there were a lot of fans around, so I had a snoot pulled up over my face because it was a very hot day, and my sunglasses and a baseball cap, and I was just walking down the lake in amongst all the Maiden fans, fishing away. They didn't know, who I was or anything.
We try to keep that fishing access open along the lakeshore there. It's not always successful. We do have some incidents where police have cracked down on fishing along there, but we've managed to work out a sort of equilibrium with the justice to let people fish, because it's important.
I think as long as people are sensible, I think boat owners get a bit upset when they come out there and there's all lures all stuck all over their boat covers where you've been trying to cast under the boats and that.
Yeah.
The harbours around the lakes there are fantastic at certain times of the year for smallmouth bass and largemouth, I suppose.
And pike.
So, you can just spend a couple of hours just roving along there with a lure rod. It's good fun.
And Red River, catfish on the Red River out of Winnipeg.
I've seen programs about it, but the last few times we've been through Winnipeg, we haven't stayed overnight. We've just touched down, done the show, and then took off. So that's one of my ambitions, is to, next time we go to Winnipeg, is maybe spend the night and do a bit of catfishing there.
But you did catch a mighty sturgeon in the Fraser.
Yeah, went out with a guide. The story of that's in the book. That was a day off in Vancouver, and I'd seen programs about the Fraser River and amazing fishing for the sturgeon and these huge fish. And I did get a guide on that occasion who had a jet boat which I was pretty surprised about. And it was a young guy, and he was blasting AC/DC and Black Sabbath all the way to the fishing spot, you know. And I thought, I want to pay off. I want to give my ears a rest, you know. But we were speeding along in this jet boat. We finally turned the music down, and we managed to catch a couple of big sturgeon. I say we. I really didn't do much. I mean, that's the thing about a guide. While you will more than likely have success, you don't really. He's not really hands-on. I mean, he rigged the rods up. There were all his rods. He knew what to do. He knew the spot. So that kind of takes it out. But when you've only got a day, you know, you need to zero in on it, and that's where a guide comes in. I didn't have the time to explore on my own. Also, with sturgeon, I think big sturgeon, it's really a team effort because they are so big. You know, you need at least two of you to handle one, you know, to get a big one. So it's only fair to the fish, you know.
100-pound sturgeon, you know, that's a huge fish anywhere you go in the world, for sure. I remember catching some like just a meter long down in the Fraser River, and I thought, those almost broke my arms. I mean, they fight so hard. And then I'm thinking, how do people pull in these 1,000-pound fish? It's, you hear once or twice a year, these monsters coming out of the river there, and there's no way I could do that.
Oh, no, it's incredible, the size. And you know, they get to be very, very old, these fish. I'm not sure I like to catch a fish that big. It turns into sort of big game hunting, you know.
Yeah.
It's not so much the size of the fish that's the satisfying thing to me. It's the process you go through. How difficult are they to catch? How difficult are they to find even? You know. So that, mind you, that usually goes, you know, the larger the fish, the rarer they are and the harder they are to catch sometimes.
We've got tremendous carp fishing, Adrian, right here on the St. Lawrence River. So the next time you're back, I don't know if you tried that, but up here, up above Cornwall, above the dams there, in the places, in the St. Lawrence Lake, we call it, or Long Sault Parkway, some of the carp fishing is just extraordinary. If you're not catching a fish every 15 minutes, something's wrong. You got a hook bait or something. It's just extraordinary.
I've seen films of it. Yeah, I've seen films. I don't think I've caught St. Lawrence carp yet. I always fish because I never have all my gear with me. I just usually have a little spinning rod. I'm in Canada, but I'd love to try the carp fishing, sure.
There's a tackle shop owner there in the UK, in London, Jeff Vaughan. He used to be an outfitter here. He bought a motel on Long Sault on the St. Lawrence River, and he'd bring in English people and put them up in the motel, him and his wife, and they'd take them fishing. And he taught me how to carp fish. He still comes over. He sold the motel, but he still comes over every spring for a couple weeks of carp fishing, and he swears the St. Lawrence is the best carp fishing in the world.
The sheer amount of fish there is quite incredible. And it's very well known here.
But what's on your bucket list for Canada? Do you have some trips in mind?
Not specifically, no. I do have a trip penciled in for New Zealand to trout fishing, and also the Cook Islands. We were supposed to do it last year. We made it to the Cook Islands, and then we had the corona outbreak.
Yes.
So we had to come home. I did go to Itapaki, and I spent a day there fishing for trevally and bonefish, but it was very, very difficult. And then after one day, I had to come home. So that's penciled in for next year. New Zealand trout fishing and Cook Islands bonefish and giant trevally.
Oh wow, those are three nice locations for sure. Like I've heard the rainbow trout fishing in New Zealand is absolutely spectacular. The countryside, it's like going back in time 20 years.
It is a little bit like England was. You even see older English cars there, you know. But the streams, they look after their fishing. They're very conservation aware. Of course, you don't have the amount of people there, so the rivers are relatively unspoiled, and you have these beautiful trout, rainbows and browns. They were imported from Europe. I mean, you know, many years ago, but they thrived in the stream. There's no real predators for them. The only other fish they have there really is have these big freshwater eels, but I don't think they bother the trout. So the trout have got plenty of food and plenty of space, and they just get huge, you know. You catch them in beautiful, beautiful surroundings, and there's a whole chapter about fishing in New Zealand in the book.
Monsters of River and Rock. It's an e-book. It's a hardcover book. And definitely it's a book about fishing with a bit of rock sprinkled in here and there. But you are a fisherman through and through. There's no doubt about it, just talking to you now. And there you are fishing yourself. Hey, I've got 7 quickfire questions for you. Just some quickfire responses. So one lure, if you had to have one bait, fresh or artificial, what would it be?
A bait or a worm, of course.
It would be a worm, eh?
A worm.
Yeah. You can't go wrong with a good old worm. They're good for a lot of things, that's for sure.
Big old fat worm, yeah.
Your favorite fishing technique?
Favorite fishing? I love bonefish. Fly fishing for bonefish. That's got to be one of my favorite.
That's got to be one of the hardest too. That's not easy to do.
Yeah, it can be. It can be. You have to, get in the right position. You have to locate the fish. You have to, you're fishing in the hot sun. Quite often it's windy. The fish are very spooky. But, when you get one, man, it's just a real rush. They're so incredible fish. They're so powerful.
What's your fishing fantasy?
Probably having my own lake or my own piece of river. So I'm kind of looking into that right now. I think before I kick the bucket, I want to have, when I'm an old man, I just want to be able to go down into my garden and just fish off the edge of my own dock. I think that's my fantasy. Fishing alone or in groups? Which do you prefer? I think alone. You get into the meditation side of it and get away from everything.
If there was one fishing buddy that you could go fishing with, who would it be? Another musician? Is there someone in mind that you'd love to go fishing with that you've heard of?
Well, there was a guy here who was a TV guy, John Wilson. He travelled all over the world fishing, made TV program. He inspired a lot of people to go fishing. It would have been interesting to spend some time with him. A guy called John Wilson.
Nice. And last question. Where do you want to retire? You mentioned about buying a little stretch of river or a lake. Do you have somewhere in mind?
Yeah, sure. I mean, River Thames in England that's a river now that's really coming into its own. It's growing monsters of carp, barbel, chub, these kind of fish we have here, and it's relatively unexplored. So I think that's the place I'd like to spend more time on.
Nice.
River Thames.
Yeah, nice. So that's great that river's coming back. That's fantastic because you're right in London there.
The upper Thames has always been okay in the middle, but once it got into London, it was just like a sewer. So it's much better now. Yeah.
Hey, man, thanks for doing this, Adrian. I really appreciate it.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. Nice talking to you, too, and good luck fishing today.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Bluefish Radio. I hope you found the show both entertaining and informative. Bluefish Radio